So Disney's planes, there's still something magic I always find when you're sitting in a darkened cinema room and that Magic Kingdom castle comes up and the fireworks happen. Do you get that buzz as an actor still?
Yes, I do, but for lots of different reasons. I mean, one is that I love radio. I think radio is a wonderful medium. If I ever did a talk show, I would want to do it on the radio. There's an intimacy about radio, and you get much more fluency in radio interviews than you do in television interviews. So there's not a very good living to be made in radio, and also you have to get up at 3:30 in the morning, in order to get to studio in time. So going into a recording studio to lay down a voice for an animated character is as near to radio, well-paid radio, as you can get.
Because radio in its heyday, I mean, the big American networks, they were the stars of their day, weren't they, the radio actors?
Yes, it all started with radio. And when I remember my early childhood, when I was about 8 years of age, 1948, we didn't have a television. So for the first 5 or 6 years that I was a sort of child who watched a bit of television, there was no television to watch. So I listened to radio all the time, and I loved it.
Are these films the modern day equivalent of those classic radio plays then, do you think?
No, I think it's more that, as people have said, the wonderful thing about the animated films now is that they can be enjoyed by the kids and the parents at the same time, because it's pitched at the kids, but it's also got lots of clever jokes in that the adults forget and the kids don't know that they're missing them. So it's a lovely way of entertaining the whole family.
You have those sort of dual jokes, but certainly with a Disney animation, it's still got that timeless Disney quality. It's about rooting for the underdog, and it's the classic Disney ethos. I mean, is it enjoyable sort of being in
Well, I think that a lot of the time the characterization or the emotional development of the characters is relatively simple, so it's easy to follow for kids. But it takes us to a slightly simpler world, and I think that that's quite a nice thing these days.
I was speaking to Steve Carell the other day in Despicable Me, and he's obviously, much like you, a talented ensemble comic actor, but he loves the freedom of being in a voice booth, and you've mentioned it there. I mean, do you just love standing there with a microphone and just being able to improvise?
Well, what's so nice about it, and I've been very lucky with, for example, the Shrek movies, is that you're dealing with people who really know what they're doing. So you come into this extremely comfortable and sort of, cozy studio. And there's a few people there who've done the script and who know what they want, and they give you lots of direction and suggestions. Would you try this? Would you try that? And then at the end, they say, well, we've got everything we want. Do you have any suggestions? And then you can say, well, what about this? Or could I try this line? And then you lay all those down. And the wonderful thing is that you can be there for hours. You lay down so much stuff that there's no real chance that they're going to choose a bad take. Do you see what I mean? So you feel safe, and there's no stress, because hiring a studio is not very expensive, so it takes as long as it takes. But when at the end they say, do you have any ideas, then you can make your contribution too, and then of course you leave them to it to make the choices of which take. But it's lovely, it's very free, it's very relaxing, and it's fun.
Do you miss, though, on the sort of flip side, if say you're in Python or Fawlty Towers, sort of bouncing off other actors and sharing ideas?
It's a very good question, but actually I've got so used to recording the voices on my own. The only time I ever recorded an animated voice with another actor or actress was on Shrek, when I recorded one session with Julie Andrews. But people kind of see that you're in the movie with these people, and you imagine that you were sort of partying with them or something, or having dinner at night. And of course, you never set eyes on them till you start doing the publicity.
Is it literally a case of being on the red carpet at premiere and then suddenly, oh, so you're in this film, are you too?
Well, it is actually. You don't see them, really. You don't see any of the other performers until the red carpet. It's extraordinary, isn't it? Because people naturally think there's an element of teamwork there, and it isn't. But if you have the right people in charge, then the whole thing can be a very interesting process, but it requires enormous patience. I mean, I did the first couple of drafts of The Croods, which was released recently. And my very good friend Kurt D'Amico, who co-wrote the first 2 drafts, saw the project the whole way through to the time it was in the movie theaters. That was 7 years. And with Planes, it's 4.5 years. I did a recording session in New York over 2 years ago, and I don't remember the studio.